Welcome to the Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethany.
We are the Youngs. We are glad you've joined us today.
Welcome.
We've been doing a series over the last couple of weeks about investing in our marriage relationships. And we kind of have divided it into three different words.
Right.
Last couple of weeks, we've been talking about roles or maybe responsibilities, and based especially on Ephesians chapter 5, as husbands are to love their wives and lead. Wives are to submit
and respect.
And we've been discussing those, and today we're ready to move into the second part of this particular series, Investing in Your Marriage, and we're going to talk today about relationship. And we are very quickly heading towards, here in coming weeks, on the word romance.
The fun part.
And we're certainly excited about that. Today we want to begin talking, though, about our marriage relationship. 3 times in the Bible discusses and defines marriage with the words, "These two shall be one." For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, be joined unto his wife, they two shall be one. In that particular definition, or that particular verse rather, we find the definition of marriage, the permanence of marriage, and the relationship of marriage. Defined, marriage is one man and one woman for one life. And that refers to the permanence. Obviously, divorce happens, and many of you that have listened or are listening have probably been through a divorce. Either your parents went through a divorce, or maybe you've been through one yourself. The Bible is very clear, though, that God's plan for our marriage is that they last a lifetime, and that's our goal. So if you're married, we're coming into our thinking here with the assumption that your plan is to be married till death do us part.
Right.
And maybe you're in your second or your third marriage, but the definition is still the same. It's a man and a woman for one life, and that's why we are going to talk with you about developing a good marriage relationship.
That will help with the permanence.
That will help with the permanence. They too shall be one is a reference about relationship. One day I walked into Bethany's dad's office. He was the pastor of our church, and we were members there at the time. And I said to Bethany's father, "Dad, what do you think is the number one problem in the marriages of those you have counseled or pastored through the years?" Bethany's dad's answer to me, with almost without thinking, he just looked up, and rarely did he answer quickly. Dad would typically think for a moment. That was his standard protocol, and you could see his wheels turning by the way he looked at you and the way he pursed his lips as he kind of mulled over his answer.
Right.
But this one he answered quite quickly. I said, "What do you think is the number one problem in the marriages of those you've counseled or pastored through the years?" And he said very quickly, "Most couples are not best friends." And that gave me a lot to think about.
Right.
And so let's talk about being best friends.
Right.
By definition, friendship is a relationship between two people who hold mutual affection for each other.
Right.
So what that means is that Bethany should like me, and that I should like her. And it's kind of that simple, isn't it? I like being with Bethany.
Yes.
And she likes being with me. And tell our audience all the reasons you like being with me.
There are a lot of reasons I like being with you. Number one, you make me laugh a lot. But it is pretty sad when couples don't spend time with each other based on the fact that they don't really even care for each other. Yeah. And they might even say, "Oh, yeah, we have a good marriage. We're fine. Everything's fine. But, what do you do together?" Well, he hangs with his friends and I hang out with my friends, and that just makes everything so much better. Then we just don't get on each other's nerves. Well, that's a problem because you should be best friends. You should want to spend time together.
Yeah, and that is a matter of saying, I like this about you.
Yes.
And I know that when you fall in love because you find reasons to like the person.
Right.
I like the way you smile at me. I like your blue eyes. I like the way you compliment me. I like that we do this together. That's how all marriages start. And quite frequently, it's very normal for the busyness of our lives, the frustrations of our lives, the irritations, the demands, to result in a couple drawing away from each other in their relationship.
Right. There can just be little things that instead of majoring on the big things that you do like about each other. You can major on the little things that irritate you about each other, and then you just think, well, why would I want to spend time with you? Because that irritates the fire out of me.
Not that we ever have that happen in our marriage, but other people's marriages, of course.
Nothing about you irritates the fire out of me.
I saw several memes along the way. I always am looking for humor and collecting memes, and here's a few that I've seen recently and even had in notes along the way for a long time. One of them said, "I once had a best friend who is now a stranger." And isn't that so true of so many marriages? They always start with great promise.
Right.
The day there's a wedding, there's music, there's crowds, there's a dress, there's a tux, there's a preacher, there's a reception, there's a rehearsal, there's visitors.
There's a honeymoon.
This is my best friend. And a divorce always means that best friend has become a stranger. And some couples never get a divorce, but it's like they are strangers. So that's a real interesting meme. One meme said, "I can't promise to fix all your problems, but I can promise that you will never face them alone." Now that sounds like a good relationship. I'm glad that friendships doesn't come with price tags, For if it did, I could never afford someone as great as you.
Aww.
And that's a really good one. And I like this one too. It said, "I love how we can look at each other and without saying anything know that we are making fun of the same person." Oh, that's good. Here's one. "I love you so much that a day without you is like a day without the internet."
Oh.
And for some people, that would be huge.
Yeah, that would be huge.
We're so addicted to our phones, and they're so necessary part of our lives. "A good friend knows all of your best stories, but a best friend has lived them with you." That was a good one, because sometimes that's just a good one to stop and think about, because it's one thing to know good stories about another person, but if you're married, the stories often should be the two of you.
Right.
And I know, you and I could sit for a long time and talk about Bar Harbor, Maine, or as they said up there, Bahaba, Maine, on our 5th anniversary. It was just even a little bit of a challenge even getting there. And yet we finally got there, and it was what a week, what an incredible, fun, enjoyable 5th anniversary celebration. We could talk about many of the restaurants. Beth and I travel all the time, so we've eaten in we look for nice restaurants when we can afford it.
Right.
But often we drive into an area and see an exit sign. It's like, "Hey, remember when we went to the Brick House?" And I think that's in Goshen, Indiana, isn't it?
It is. Uh-huh.
And or we went to the Granville Inn. That was near where we lived in Ohio. And
nice local places.
The list goes on and on. And then coffee shops. Those are
all over.
Those are our good memories. So a good friend knows all of your best stories, but a best friend has lived them all with you. And here's one I thought was pretty funny. "You don't have to be crazy to be my friend. I will train you." And so sometimes to be married to each other takes a little bit of craziness.
Either that or your children are driving you to that craziness, and you can just experience it together.
And then a little bit of humor. "Nothing better than a friend unless it's a friend with chocolate."
Yes.
Our son Joshua, he's a real firm believer in the chocolate. Chocolate fixes everything. So he'll give you chocolate if you think you're having a bad day. Who needs friends? Somebody said, "I have the internet." That's a really sad one.
That is.
And yet a reminder, because often in marriages, we'll watch couples go out to eat, and they don't talk the entire time.
Right, they scroll their phones.
She's looking at her phone, he's looking at his, and ever so often they show each other something on their phone.
Right.
"I want to be the reason you look down at your phone, smile, and walk into a pole." That's one of my favorites. And then another one, "A good friend will try to bail you out of jail, but a best friend will be there with you saying, 'Man, that was fun.'"
Oh, dear.
We've never had that happen to us, just for all of you that are listening, just so you know. But here's a sad one, really to get our thinking headed to where we're going today. "It is really amazing when two strangers become best friends." On a night in September, our senior year in Bible college, Beth and I, as strangers, met one another.
Right.
And over the months after that, became best friends. And now for 27 years here very shortly.
Next week.
Best friends. So it's really amazing when two strangers become best friends, but this quote said, "It's really sad when two best friends become strangers." So what Beth and I want to talk about today and next week is just a little bit about how two strangers can remain best friends, become best friends, remain best friends.
Or work on becoming best friends.
And work towards that, of course. And so let's just jump right in here. And here's an obvious statement. It's obviously going to take love.
Yes.
One of the things that's very definite about a marriage is I love you.
I love you
me.
too.
Yes. I was waiting for that.
Yes.
Way to jump in there. Someone said, love is what you do. It's not what you feel.
Very true.
Now, we have to keep that in perspective because a love without feeling would not make sense.
No, it would be very clinical.
It would be very clinical, would not necessarily be love, I don't think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But love is, maybe the better way to say that is love is based on what you do, not what you feel. Sometimes a couple will say in a counseling session, well, we just don't love each other anymore. Mm. And that's entirely possible. What they probably mean is we don't feel that we love each other anymore.
Right.
Because love is what you do. What they're telling you indirectly is somewhere along the way we stopped the doing.
Right.
That made our marriage the wonderful things that it is. And if we think about doing, let's start there.
Okay.
We do things for each other and we do things together.
Okay.
And that's a foundation for our marriage. So things we do for each other, I'm aware of Bethley's needs and she's aware of mine. So we go back to what we've talked about in recent weeks, the love languages.
Right.
And if I know Bethley has something she enjoys and I do that for her, then I'm putting deposits in her love account.
Right.
She likes getting flowers along the way. So if I buy her flowers, or I buy her coffee, or I buy her chocolate, or I surprise her in some way,
right? Mm-hmm.
That's a deposit in the love tank.
Yes, it is.
And obviously, most men probably don't look for bring me a dozen roses, but when Bethley makes a meal for me, or Bethley gets my favorite bread, or whatever,
right.
Or she uses my favorite coffee mug. In the mornings when we start our day, normally we've kind of switched on this. Some years ago, I was always the first one up.
Right.
And now the older we get, Bethley almost always beats me up now. She's up first. She's going before I hit the floor. And so normally when I get up in the morning, my coffee is ready to start. The coffee pot is fresh water. The coffee's ready. Everything's warming. I just have to push a button, and a few moments later, I have a cup of coffee to start my day. That's doing things for each other.
Right.
And so I'm thinking of several here. Anything
else? It can be anything
mind?
From around the house, like starting coffee for one another, or bringing each other a cup of coffee, a mug of coffee in the morning or in the afternoon, all the way to sitting down in the morning and saying, hey, what's on your agenda today? Well, what can I take off your list for you? Can I run by the dry cleaner? And then it can be all the way to surprising them, with a weekend away, or a gift for no reason at all. So there are many, many things that we can do for one another that show each other that we are best friends, and I'm thinking of you. I think that's one of the hallmarks of being best friends. Hey, I'm thinking of you.
I'm thinking of you. That could even be a text.
Yeah.
On your lunch break, or during a morning break. Instead of just being focused on your Facebook page, you take the time to send a spouse a note,
right?
Just a quick comment, and I love you. This morning I was walking our dog quite early, and our neighbor goes to work pretty early, and so she was leaving her driveway rather, and so she stopped and just greeted me. So I was walking on the road with my dog, and she mentioned the fact she and her husband, we live here in Northwest Florida, where it takes a lot of work to have a yard. To get your grass to grow, you have to be on it, water it, fertilize it. It's a lot of effort here. We get a ton of rain, but it's a sandy soil, so it takes a lot of work. And so she and her husband this year put in grass.
They put in a lawn.
Put a lot of work into it. I even helped lay some of the sod, and it was a ton of work.
Yes.
Well, someone told me, we've been out of town some recently, but someone told me we've gotten rain almost every day for a month. So her yard is just beautiful and growing so fast they can't keep up with it. And she loves to mow, but yesterday her husband mowed the yard for her. And I watched him. It was so thick and so tall. He moved very slowly. It took a long time yesterday to mow that yard. And she mentioned that this morning.
Huh.
She mentioned that he had done that for her. And it looked really good. It looks really good over there. The yard looks good. And she pulls in yesterday afternoon aware that he had mowed the yard for her.
Right.
And cleaned up.
She didn't have to do it.
She likes the grass to be hauled out of the yard. And he made sure there was no grass left in the yard, no grass clippings, that is. And so it's what you do. You do things for each other, and you do things together.
Right.
And this can go for a long ways.
Yes, it can.
And we can pray together, which is very important. Many couples never do. And so when Beth and I pray together, that's a level of closeness. I pray with many people, but there's something about praying with my spouse, my wife. and praying together, dates together. We plan a lot of those.
Yes.
And
I would say for the level of friendship that you want to have, that intimate level of best friends for a couple that's married, the dating is absolutely imperative.
Sure.
And I know there are a lot of couples who think, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to go. We don't have money for a babysitter. Or you can do all kinds of different things. I once or just read recently in a magazine or a blog, I can't remember where it was, but actually I think it was a book. A lady had said that her children were little. They didn't have time or money to get out. And so on a certain night every week, she would fix something very simple for the children. She would get them in bed, and they had she had a special cafe table put into their bedroom. And she would serve her husband dinner, a candlelight dinner, in their bedroom at their little cafe table once a week until their children got older. Now, our children are old enough, we can go, and we do.
Sure. And it doesn't take a lot of money necessarily. We splurge along the way. There's some restaurants that were like, okay, we're going to spend a little extra this date and go really nice.
Right.
But a date can be a coffee together, a couple of bucks for each other for a coffee, or even a little dessert at a coffee shop.
Absolutely. And if you can't go and you don't have anyone to watch the kids, you can say, hey, mommy and daddy are sitting on the couch by ourselves and we are talking, so you need to go to your room and play with your Legos or whatever.
Yeah, you can put on music, and in the privacy of your room, you can dance together.
Yes, you can.
You can have a date together. And that was a good word for an independent Baptist preacher right there. Dance together.
Yeah, I was a little taken aback.
You were kind of scandalized by that, weren't you? And we do things together. We can pray together. We do dates together. We can even plan together. A lot of life demands planning.
Yes.
What are we going to do here? What are we going to do about this? Right. How are we going to take care of this need? Mm-hmm. And instead of looking at those things as, oh my word, we got to do it, do them together.
Right.
Do them to think things through together, and even do hobbies together.
Right.
I love motorcycles, and I have not had one in any of the years that we've been married. I've ridden them quite frequently during our marriage. But someone said to me the other day, said something about, what would your wife think if you got a motorcycle? And I said, well, she'd be a little nervous because motorcycles can be dangerous. And but she wouldn't be opposed to that. She'd be okay with me having that hobby. And then he said, yeah, but she wouldn't ride with you, would she?
Oh,
and I said, I think she would. and it would be a matter, not even so much that Bethany loves motorcycles, but that she knows I do.
Right.
I know that Bethany loves to shop. My joke for years has been that my truck gets 5 malls to the gallon.
Oh, well.
And not as often as she wishes.
Right.
But the times that I either take her shopping or see to it that she gets shopping in is important to her. Those are hobbies, and doing hobbies together can be a blessing, can be a help. You think of anything else couples can do together? Plans, pray, dates, hobbies?
You can even think of things that just you two do. Maybe you walk every morning together. Maybe you take a hike on weekends. Maybe you ride bikes together, just you two. Maybe you go exploring in your downtown area, just you two. And it can be what our daughter-in-law likes to call adventuring. She and Bethany and Joshua go on adventures all the time, and she will plan them out or he will plan them out, and they find the most remote areas, but some fun places.
Sure.
And they have a great time. They take great pictures, and that's all part of being best friends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a great thing. So it's going to take love, obviously.
Obviously.
But that leads us into a second thought here that we need to dwell on just a little bit. It is going to take time.
Yes.
And that does seem to be a massive issue in our generation.
Right.
Oddly enough, we have more convenience. Our forefathers, to go to town took an entire day. Mm-hmm. You had to plan the trip, hitch up the horses, get in the horse and buggy, ride to town, even to make an order. How long did it take you to get an order when you lived in the West and you were ordering something back east? It had to come on the train. Amazon has changed all of that. We're complaining that during COVID, oh my word, Prime is longer than 2 days.
Yes.
And so time is an issue for our generation.
Right.
We are blessed. I mean, you can get coffee really fast, and you can get your day going really fast.
Right.
You got hot water, just wait a second in the average home and you got hot water. Mm-hmm. But in spite of all of that, it seems like so many couples are so busy that the first thing to go in the busyness of our schedule can be marriage. We
Can be
can
the
say, you know what,
relationship.
I got to work. I've been
Right.
busy, so I need me time. Or,
Right.
I haven't played golf in a while, so I'm going to go with my buddies. And it's not wrong to work.
No.
In fact, God honors work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not wrong to be with your buddies.
Right.
God honors that. It's not wrong to go visit your family. God honors all of that. But there's something wrong when we never put our marriage in the time schedule.
Right.
To say, you know what, Bethany, I need time. And I know today I had a busy morning planned. I had an appointment this morning. So we adjusted. We've been walking together every day. So this morning I asked Bethany if we could move it up so we could still walk together, because it's exercise, which is important.
It is.
But it's also a connection.
Yes, time together.
And so by doing it a little bit earlier, it was a little bit cooler.
Yes.
And when you live in Northwest Florida, that's not a bad idea.
In August, yes.
And since my wife
Absolutely.
is up early anyway,
May as well.
I might as well get going early and exercise. But the time factor is so important, and especially now that so many couples both work.
Right.
And we see that a lot. The wife works, the husband works. You have any advice for
Well, it's just not a priority.
couples?
And in our culture, it is such a priority to have what you refer to as me time, or just to crash. I just need a crash on the couch. And so we work all day long. Maybe we don't get home until late afternoon or early evening. And then all we want to do is just sit on the couch and scroll through our phones or scroll through Netflix. And that's not necessarily wrong, but to expend a tiny bit more energy to have time with your spouse is so important, and it builds that relationship. It builds that best friendship.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I know David will say, hey, we're going to go on a date, and we'll have an especially busy day. And both of us, by the end of that day, we'll just think, what should we even do this?
Should we even put forth this effort?
Do I want to go back and put on extra mascara and lipstick and a different outfit so that I can look nice for this?
I never think that way,
He
by the
does
way.
not. He doesn't. But you know what? We get a slug of coffee in us and we're like, let's do it. And we're always glad that we do. We're always
Sure.
glad we put forth the priority of our friendship and relationship.
Absolutely. And it does have to be a priority. Time has to be a priority.
It does.
We have to decide, you know what, we want a closer relationship. We want to have a close relationship in our marriage. And it will not happen by accident.
No.
It will be that we're doing the things that caused us to fall in love. And along with that does come the feeling. And
Yes.
you always know when a couple's in love. If you're around an older couple and they're in love, you know it.
Yes.
It shows up in their sweetness, their affection, their
Right.
gentleness, their kindness,
They're touching.
even their smirk sometimes at each other, or their
Right.
chuckle at some inside joke.
Right.
So it does take love, but it takes the time, and it takes prioritizing it and saying, you know what, we want a closer marriage.
Yes.
So what could we do? How could we change things?
Right.
And it may mean for you guys, it may mean if your wife works and you work, you may have to do more at home than some men would have to if their wife were home all day and she's taking
Right.
care of all the laundry. You may have to pitch in with the laundry. And one of the things you do together is parent.
Right.
And we can talk about that a little bit more next week. But that's a time investment especially when our kids were younger. We parented together.
Right.
Doing things with the baby, and for the baby, we bathed the babies together.
Right.
And and laughed about things, and it was a fun time. We did dishes together and
Right.
helped in the kitchen together. So time is important, and it's vital if you're going to have a best friend relationship in your
Right.
marriage. Any final thoughts along these two lines of love or time?
I don't think so. I think we'll pick up with this.
All right. Hope you'll
Next
join us
week.
next week. Well, this is Keeping It Young, and we're the Youngs, and we are so glad you've listened to us today.
The Keeping It Young podcast is a Bax 5 Media production. All rights reserved.